The booking that should have never happened. You shouldn't be here. You've always been careful, always made sure your accommodations were safe, but this one time, you let your guard down. The review seemed fine, the pictures looked comforting. But there's something you missed. You should have known when the price seemed too good to be true. You should have felt the unease in the air as soon as you clicked confirm booking, but now you're in too deep. Welcome to the Airbnb that shouldn't have been booked. The notifications didn't help. The strange text from the host that came at odd hours with vague messages like, "It's best not to leave the room too late at night," and "The house has a mind of its own, be careful with the mirrors." You laughed it off then, dismissing it as quirky banter. But now, as the sun sets behind the old, creaky building, you can't shake the feeling that you're being watched. The place is isolated, far from the buzzing city life. The kind of place that feels like it's been forgotten by the world. A dim streetlight flickers in the distance as the wind howls outside, pushing against the windows like it's trying to get in. You enter the property, feeling the weight of an unknown presence linger in the hallway. The host isn't there to greet you, but the front door swings open as if anticipating your arrival. The heavy scent of aged wood and dust fills the air, a smell that clings to the skin. The walls creak with every step you take, whispering secrets you can't quite hear but feel all the same. You toss your bags onto the floor, glancing around. The place is almost too perfect, too staged. There are flowers in every room, positioned just so. Fresh towels stacked neatly on the bathroom counter. And yet, something doesn't sit right. The shadows in the corners seem to stretch just a bit too far, and the flickering candlelight in the kitchen doesn't quite seem to match the movement of the flame. And then there are the mirrors. You've seen them now, two positioned perfectly across from each other, creating an infinite reflection that stretches deep into the house. You didn't notice them at first, but now that you're here, they're impossible to ignore. The longer you stare at them, the more they seem to shift, as if they're showing you something more. Something that shouldn't exist. You try to shake it off. You go to bed, thinking it's just a bad feeling, something that'll pass by morning. But sleep never comes. Not when the house starts breathing. Not when the floorboards groan beneath you as if something, or someone, is walking through the walls. It's at that moment that you hear it. A voice. Soft, almost inaudible, coming from the corner of the room. A whisper. You know you shouldn't listen, but you do. You edge closer, heart racing. Your breath catches in your throat as the voice becomes clearer, more distinct. Don't look in the mirrors. You freeze. The room is still, but the voice is louder now, like it's moving through the house. You slowly turn to look at the mirror. The one closest to the door. The reflection isn't you. You see a figure, a shadow, that's too tall, too distorted. A thing that doesn't belong. It's not human, but it watches you with eyes that burn through the glass. You step back, your hand shaking as it grazes the mirror, but the figure doesn't vanish. It stays, staring, watching, waiting. A cold shiver runs down your spine as you turn around to leave the room, but when you reach for the door handle, it won't budge. The handle is ice cold, freezing your hand to the metal. Panic sets in. You pull harder, but it's as though something is holding it shut. You scream for help, but the silence is overwhelming, pressing in from all sides. And then a figure steps into the hallway, your host. But they don't look right. Their smile is too wide, too sharp, and their eyes are empty. Hollow. Like there's nothing behind them, just a vast, gaping void. They speak, their voice a low, guttural rasp. You shouldn't have come. Before you can react, the lights flicker and you're plunged into darkness. The door bursts open, but the hallway beyond is no longer the one you entered. Different. Twisted. The walls bend in impossible ways, as if the house itself is alive, changing with each passing second. Your breath is caught in your throat as the air grows thick. You can hear something crawling, dragging its way towards you, but when you look down the hallway, nothing. The room is empty. The mirrors gleam at you like hungry eyes, reflecting your every move. But you're not alone. The thing in the reflection moves when you move, but it doesn't mimic you. Watches you. And then the whisper comes again, louder this time, as if it's all around you. Run. The door slams shut behind you. And somewhere in the dark, you can hear it breathing. What happens next? You'll find out soon, but first, make sure you've subscribed to the channel. Because if you don't, you might be the one who ends up in that house next. The truth behind the house. The door slams shut and you stand there, paralyzed by fear, trying to catch your breath. The air feels thick and heavy, pressing against your chest like a vice. You turn around, expecting to see the hallway stretch back to the room you were in, but the space before you is wrong. The walls are bending, curving inward as if the house itself is alive, twisting and pulling at the seams. The lights flicker and buzz, casting grotesque shadows that seem to follow you no matter where you go. And in the silence, you can hear it, the soft whisper, the sound of something moving just out of sight. You need to escape. The thought of leaving the house is the only thing that keeps your feet moving. You dart toward the window, but when you pull the curtains back, there's no outside. Just a swirling black void that extends forever, a nightmare with no end. The reflection in the mirror, it's closer now. You can see its details more clearly. The figure's face is twisted, its features warped and impossible, like it was made of shadows and smoke, trying to take form but failing. It smiles at you but not with its mouth. No, its smile is in its eyes, hollow and empty, pulling you into a gaze you can't break free from. "Help me," you hear in your mind. The voice isn't yours. It doesn't belong to anyone you know. It's a hollow, distorted sound that seems to come from all around you, from the very walls, the air, the mirrors. You look around, desperate for an escape, but there's nowhere to run. Every corner you turn, every step you take, the house seems to grow bigger, stretching out into impossible dimensions. You stumble backward and then, there it is again. The sound. That crawling, scraping noise. It's coming closer. Something is crawling toward you from the dark, but you don't dare to look. Your body won't move. It's as though the house has taken root inside you, locking your limbs in place, holding you there, making sure you witness everything. And then it steps into view. A thing so monstrous and unnatural that you can't even comprehend what it is. It's humanoid, but its skin is ashen and stretched, hanging loosely like a forgotten carcass. Its limbs are too long, too thin, twitching unnervingly as it drags itself across the floor. Its face, if you can even call it a face, is a twisted mess of gaping wounds and hollow dark eyes that seem to pierce through you, through your very soul. It stops in front of you, its mouth opening wide, impossibly wide. A sound, like the air being sucked out of a vacuum, escapes from it. The force of the sound makes your ears ring, and you feel your body tremble in fear. Do you hear it? The voice fills your mind as if the thing is speaking directly to you. The house is awake, and it knows you're here. You want to scream, to fight, to do anything to escape, but your body won't obey. You can only watch as the creature inches closer, its black eyes locked onto yours. The air grows colder, the silence stretching unbearably long. You feel a presence in the room now, something far worse than the creature. An ancient, unspeakable evil that has been disturbed. "You shouldn't have stayed," it whispers, the voice not from the creature, but from deep within the house itself. A cold hand touches your arm. You flinch, but the touch isn't physical. It's inside you, crawling beneath your skin. The house, it seems, has claimed you. And then the truth hits you. This place, it's not just haunted. It's not just some ordinary Airbnb with a twisted history. No, this house is a prison. A prison that feeds on the souls of the unlucky few who enter it. A prison that extends far beyond the walls, beyond the mirrors, beyond the very fabric of reality. You are not the first to be trapped here. You will not be the last. The creature smiles again, and you hear the whisper once more, louder now, almost deafening. "Now you're mine." Suddenly, the mirrors crack, shattering into thousands of shards, each one reflecting an endless line of eyes. Eyes that are not your own. Eyes that are watching, waiting. You can feel them. You can feel them in the walls, in the floor, in your mind. And that's when you realize, this nightmare, this house, this evil, it's not over. You've been marked just like all the others before you. The act of hearing this story, the act of experiencing the horror of this house, it's already too late. You are part of it now. You hear the voice once more, closer than ever, as if it's standing right behind you. Will you let them know? The house, the evil, the curse, it's all connected. And now it knows you, watches you. As you stand there, trembling, unable to move, you can't help but feel it. Something has followed you. Something has attached itself to you. The air is heavier, the silence deeper. It's not just the house. No, it's the thing that lurks behind it. The thing that's always been there, waiting. You close your eyes, but it's too late. The nightmare is never over. Subscribe now if you want to know what happens next.